Hey you guys, I have not seen y'all in so long, but I'm not about to bore y'all with a long introduction because I hate when I come to look for information, the person who viewing this video is taking forever to get to the point. So we just about to dive right in it. As you can see by the title, we are talking about how to become a travel nurse. I'm about to give y'all the scoop, the tips, everything, because it's a bag out here and I want y'all to get it. So let's go. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say before you make the commitment to become a travel nurse is before you consider anything else, you need to be confident in your skill set. I know that they say wait a year or two so you can get experience and then go from there. But I really think, and I heard somebody else say this on another video, and I agree with it 100%, that you need to be able to take care of the sickest person on your unit. So if you don't feel like you can do that, then you're probably not ready. Now that doesn't mean because you're competent, you wouldn't be a nurse if you didn't know how to do certain stuff. But a lot of times, I know for me, my last assignment, I hadn't did an NG tube for a while, but on my last assignment, I was doing one like every week. So sometimes you just don't get that experience because you're not familiar with it because you don't see it as often. But when I say confident, I mean, even if you haven't put an NG tube in a while, understand the basics. Understand that when you put an NG tube in, you need to be looking for placement. When you're doing the Foley, what you need to see. When you're pulling out a PICC line, understand like what is important for those specific tasks. Even if you haven't done it in a while, I guarantee you there's somebody on your unit who will help you, but you want to be confident. You don't want to get there, and this is why I say this, you have no clue what you are walking into when you are a travel nurse. You know that you are there to meet a need, but you don't know how bad that need is. So you don't know if you'll have resources. You don't know if you'll have support. You don't know if you'll have good charge nurses. You don't know. Everything is kind of a surprise. So you don't want to get there. And let's say you have none of those things and then be overwhelmed with the fact that you got a sick patient that you just don't feel competent and confident enough to take care of. So when I say that, I mean, you don't have to know how to do things verbatim, but you need to understand, if I'm putting in an NG tube, what do I need to do to make sure that placement is correct? You get your stethoscope and you listen, put it in the area and you listen to it. If it bubbles, you in a good spot. And also most places have policies in place where you would go ahead and get an x-ray. So when I say that about being confident in your skills, not necessarily that you need to know how to do everything, but you need to be competent enough to know if something is wrong. That's what I mean. So before you do that, if you're not comfortable, that's what I would suggest, to wait until you get your skills up, until you have enough experience, so that when you get out there in that world, because they're not going to baby you, they're not going to hold your hand. They want you to know your stuff. That's the point of hiring us, because we don't have to train you. We let you know this is our policies on this, that, and the third, and you keep it moving. They're not going to you will get training like 1 or 2 days, if that, but you need to be confident in your skills. So if you feel like you can take care of the sickest person on your unit, you should be fine. After you make that decision and you feel confident in your skill set, make the decision. Just go. It is simple as that. I know that for a lot of people, it's not easy to get up and move, but I do know people who have families, who have kids, who have husbands, who have wives. Some couples travel together, but ultimately you just need to make the decision. Once you make the decision, whatever your situation is, then you put in the parameters in place to fit your situation. So if you are a single mom, I mean, make sure you got somebody to watch your kid. Or if you have a husband, or, just discuss that with your family before you do it, because traveling can get kind of difficult, or it can be difficult if you have other responsibilities. As y'all know, it's just me. I don't have no kids. It's just my dog. We are the only two that I have to worry about. So it's easy for me to just pick up and go. But if you do have a family, you have to think about that dynamic, school, and all that type of stuff. But once you ultimately make the decision, then it's go time. So now I'm going to get into talking about agencies. I'm pretty sure you've heard this, and if not, I don't think I'll be the first to tell you, but work with multiple agencies. No hospital is loyal to you, and you are not loyal to any hospital or agency. I have only worked with one agency, but that's because when I've tried to work with multiple agencies, the one agency that I do work with, they always come back with the highest rate. And if you guys want to know, I work with Aya Healthcare. I've worked with True Staff, I work with Fast Staff, Favorite, Crucial, Now, Crucial and Favorite, those are really good companies to work with, and they have high paying contracts, but it depends on what you want. I'm not the type of person who likes to work. 3 days is enough for me. When you get contracts like that, you're usually working 6 days straight, or however they break it up, but you're working almost every single day. I'm not the type of person who wants to do that. I am okay with working 3 to 4 days. 4 is a little bit too much, but I will. But I am okay with that. So it all depends on your preference. I know somebody who was working with Crucial. She went down to Texas and she was working for months for 6 days straight. I just can't do that. So you have to know what works for you. There are contracts out there like that where you can get paid. When they were talking about getting paid $10K a week, that's a real thing. That was more than enough for me. I was able to pay off my debt. I was able to start a business. I was able to put a savings. I was able to take off months from work. Like, it just depends on what your goal is and what you have for your life. So figure that out. But I will say, I recommend, I'm telling you, work with multiple agencies. And they all know. I've never met a recruiter who I told them and they were like surprised. Like, they all know that I'm working with other people, and whoever got the highest bid, that's who I'm going with. They don't take it personal. Like, it's a given. So figure out what agency you want to work with, and then pick your contract based on the rate that they're giving you. So things to look for when you are picking your agency. I feel like the number one thing that mattered to me is how I vibe with my recruiter. I love my recruiter. She has looked out for me so much. When I was on a bad contract, she was like, oh no, let's get you up out of there, or let's get you some more money. Like, make sure, because some people are not passionate about their job. And if they're not, it's going to show. I can tell you that my recruiter, she genuinely loves what she does, and she genuinely has my best interest at heart. Now, don't get it wrong. Like, she got to get her money too. So she has a motive behind it, but it's not like some vindictive, like, oh, I'm trying to keep all the money for me. Like, she keep it 100 with me. So when you are looking through these agencies, see how you mesh with your recruiter. See if they are on top of stuff. See if they are following up with you. And I will say this, because recruiters deal with a lot of different people, you have to do your part too. Because a recruiter is only going to do so much. He or she may have 20, 30 other people that they are trying to find jobs for. And if you procrastinate and you not getting into compliance, they're not going to keep calling you every 5 seconds to make sure that you want to go. So make sure it's something that you want to do before you reach out, because you have to be conscious of their time too. But also, when you are ready to go, make sure it's somebody who like keeping on track of everything. Like my recruiter, she knew it was my first contract. She made sure that I knew everybody that I need to talk to get into compliance. She was like, if you have any concerns about the hospital, I'll reach out to the supervisor so that you can talk to them. When I had concerns at the hospital that I was at, she went to the chain of command and was like, listen, she's not feeling it. Something either needs to be done. We need to give her more money, or we need to get her out of there. Like, make sure that y'all mesh well, because I feel like that's going to give you a better experience. And then I also know that there were other travel nurses who were like, well, my recruiter didn't advocate for me to get any more money, or my recruiter was trying to like hide stuff. You just don't want to work with that type of person, because it's going to make you feel a certain type of way. So make sure that you mesh well with your recruiter. The vibe is good, and you feel like they actually care about what they're doing and they care about you. Also, things to ask if they do relocation fees. Most of them does. So they'll give you a certain amount of money to relocate to your place. The most I've seen is like $300. This is just for like travel. So if you gotta fly or if you gotta drive, they'll pay for that. Ask if they do scrub reimbursement. Most of them do. At least I know that Aya does for any place that I go to. It's not just the one time. Any hospital that I go to, if I have to buy scrubs, or even if I don't, say I just want a new pair of scrubs, they will reimburse me. The amount is here and there. I've been reimbursed up to like $150. That's enough for 2 shirts and 2 pants and a jacket. So also ask if they do bonus referrals. I know Aya does that. Anytime I refer somebody, I get $500. It's not like a one-time thing. Once I refer somebody and you complete your contract, understand the terms of it. They complete their contract, then you get money back. But I only refer people if I know they're serious, because I love my recruiter and I don't have time for people to be playing games with her, because then it takes away from me and then it just have her overwhelmed and all over the place. So I'm not even trying to do that to her. But ask if they have a referral program. Ask if they have a sign-on bonus. A lot of hospitals will pay you a bonus if you complete your contract. That could be up to $500 to $1,000. But these are things that you need to ask, because sometimes if you don't ask, you won't know. The most they can say is no, but it's better to put it out there than to say nothing about it. If you need insurance, ask what their rates are. Ask to look at their plan. I know that they have really good insurance. They had better insurance than when I was working at NCH. But ask about their rates for insurance, because if you have kids or anything like that, or if you have health conditions where you know that you need to have a doctor on board, or, you know, be able to have access to medical care, ask what the rates are. So another thing that I feel like is most important is a lot of companies get you in the door by showing you the gross rate. So they'll say you'll be making $10,000 a week, but in reality, once taxes are out, it's $8,000. And that's fine. I mean, $8,000 is still a lot of money, but when you get to the lower rate contract, say your contract is $2,000 a week, and they're saying, oh, you'll get $2,000 a week, but after taxes is taken out, that's probably like $1,800. So pay attention to that, because $1,600 or $1,800, that's, for some people, that's not enough. Now, I know that y'all seen in that video, like I was making around $1,800 every 2 weeks. So I always have to remind myself, especially since I'm coming from these higher paying contracts, that that's what you were making in 2 weeks. So to make that weekly is still not bad. But again, this all depends on your personal situation. You know how much money you need, which brings me to the next point. Like I said, pay attention to the net pay, not the gross. That's how they're gonna reel you in, because it's gonna look good, but then when you get your check, you're gonna be like, wait, that's not what they said. Another resource that I want to tell you about when it comes to calculating your pay, that way you can see how much money is going to be pulled out for that particular state, and based on your filing, if you're filing married or single, if you have one dependent or no dependents, it's pretty accurate, and you'll know exactly how much you'll be getting taken out. So you can take that gross pay, or you can take that rate. They're going to give you a rate, and you can take that rate and plug in your numbers. If you're single, married, one dependent, whatever state it is, how many hours you'll work, and then that will give you an idea of what your check is. It may be off plus or minus $50, but it's always worked well for me, and it's been pretty accurate. That brings me to my next point. When you are taking these contracts, I think it is imperative that you budget accordingly, because even though you may be making, let's just say on the lower end, $1,800 a week, you need to account for all your expenses. So what I do is I make sure I have a budget for my house. Y'all know that I live in Florida and I own a house in Florida. And even though I have tenants, I still want to make sure that I can pay that mortgage if they're there or not. They can up and decide to just leave. I still need to be able to make sure that I can pay my bills. So I have a budget for my home in Florida, all the expenses associated with that, whatever I have to pay. I have to pay the person who manages my home. I have to pay my mortgage. I have to pay pest control. I have to pay for the water filtration. I have to pay for lawn maintenance. All those expenses are a part of my budget and goes into account when I'm taking a contract. Then I also have a budget for wherever I'm living at. If I'm living out of state, most likely I am, because Florida has trash contracts. But if I'm living out of state, then I need to take into account my expenses for that contract. So how much does it cost for me to live somewhere? Because 9 times out of 10, I'm taking a stipend. So if I'm taking a stipend, then that means that I have to find my own housing. So when I was in Atlanta, we were paying $3,000 a month, which I'm glad that I went on a contract with someone. But just say that I was by myself, I have to take into account of that. Is this going to be worth it after all of my expenses? So I had to take into gas, even though we were like 5 minutes from the hospital, but I have to take into a gas. I have to take into account food. I have to take into account housing. So then that's another budget. And then the most important budget is how much money am I going to have left over? So how much money is enough for me to be like, okay, cool, I'm cool with stacking with this, or whatever you decide to do with your money. If you want to go start a business, or you want to stack, you want to pay off debt, but you need to have those 3 budgets. How much does it cost for your home? A lot of y'all may have kids, y'all have a spouse, y'all have to take care of home as well, and then you have to take care of wherever you're staying at, and then you want to be able to have money left over. So take into account, when I say the budget is probably the most important thing, and I think it's surprising to me that a lot of people don't know how much it costs for them to live monthly. Tally up all your bills. I'm talking about even the subscription, Hulu, Netflix, Apple Music. Tally up all of that stuff and see how much it costs for you to live in your home. And then compare that to the contract. If it costs you $2,000 a month to live in your home, and then it's gonna cost you another $2,000 to live on a contract, but the contract is only paying $4,000 a month, that's all your money right there. So it's not even gonna be worth it for you to go. So pay attention to that. Budget wisely, compare it to your contract, see what money you have left over, use that resource so you can see what you will be getting weekly. That's the wonderful thing about travel nursing. You're not getting paid every 2 weeks or once a month. You're getting paid every single week. Tally it up and then make your decision based off of that. So before you sign your contract, there are a few things that I think are very important before you do it, that will probably make a difference if you accept the contract or not. So one of the things is making sure that your hours are guaranteed. It is nothing worse than going to an assignment and being called off every single week. It defeats the purpose, because I know for Aya, if you get called off, or not necessarily get called off, if you don't come in, you don't get your whole entire stipend. That stipend is tax-free money. And so if you don't get your stipend, that's less money in your check. So make sure that you are getting guaranteed hours so that you don't have to worry about that. Most contracts are usually typically 36 or 48. I've been seeing a lot of 48-hour contracts, but typically 36 or 48 are the norm. Make sure that, ask them, what is the overtime rate? So you know that nurses, we only typically work 36 hours. Anything after 40 would be overtime. And that's another thing. Ask if overtime starts after 36 or do it start at the 40. There are some hospitals, rare, that will say, okay, your overtime starts at 36, because that's the typical shift for us. But most do after 40. And if that is the case, what is that overtime rate? That overtime rate should be higher than your hourly rate. And I'll show you guys an actual contract where it shows the difference in rates. But ask those questions. Ask, what happens if I get called off? Do I have to make up that day? Hospitals typically, or between the agency and the hospital, from what my recruiter explained to me, is they already pay for a set number of days for you to work there. And so that's why those days have to be made up. But ask those questions. Ask, will you be floated or will you be on a unit? I definitely highly recommend calling the supervisor or the nurse manager of that unit just to kind of get a feel for them. 1, and 2, ask questions about this unit. Are y'all team players? Like most of them might bullshit you because they want you to come. They're not gonna tell you like, yeah, we got a high turnover rate and nobody gets along. They're not gonna tell you that, but you should just kind of feel the vibe of the nurse manager. But ask, do people work together as a team? Do you have charge nurses? The first assignment I went to, they didn't have any charge nurses. It was just all travelers by themselves on a floor. We had no resources. It was crazy. And I never thought to ask that. Why would you not have a charge nurse? But there are some hospitals that don't have charge nurses on their floors. So ask that. Ask what is the culture of the floor. Ask how many patients you will be having. That is important. The first contract I went to, that was the first time I ever had 7 patients in my life, and I had no clue. But ask, what is your ratio? At night and daytime, is it 5 to 6, or do y'all have 7 patients? Ask, will you be staying on that unit or will you be floated? Most times you will be on a certain unit. If you are going to be float, it will state that you will be float. But again, you never know when you get there. I mean, of course you can fight it if you be like, nah, I was supposed to be on this floor. But for the most part, they will tell you if you are on float. Ask what type of floor it was. My last contract, I was on an orthopedic floor. Never did ortho at all. And so, not that I was concerned about it, but it was like, this is new for me. So learning all the new terminology of the surgeries, learning that it's basically pain management and making sure and getting up and walk. So you have a high turnover rate. Those patients are not staying there. If you get a hip replacement, knee replacement, whatever, they want you to get up the day of surgery and keep it moving so they can get the next person in the bed. So probably the easiest unit that I ever worked on, but because I didn't know, these were things that I questions that were important to me. So, and then I had time to go look up like what is important about the ortho floor. I also recommend that if you have things planned, say you got a wedding or you got a family trip coming up, ask for those days off before you sign your contract. Usually what my recruiter does is I'll tell her, hey, I want to have a week off, or I want to have these days off. She'll reach out to the hospital, ask, is this okay? And they usually approve it. I've never had a problem because every contract I always ask for a specific time off. But they'll approve it, and then make sure everything that I am saying, when we talk about sign-on bonuses, when we talk about stipends, hourly rate, overtime, time off, make sure it is in your contract. If you don't see it, don't assume it's there. Ask, hey, remember we talked about this? Can you make sure to put that in? My recruiter has never had a problem with it. I remember my first contract, I remember talking about uniform reimbursement, but when I got my contract, I didn't see it. I just hit her up like, hey, I don't see that. My bad, I'll go ahead and put it in. Not that she intentionally meant to do it, but it's a lot of stuff going on. And just make sure, make a list, write stuff down, voice record them while you're having these conversations, because it's a lot of information at one time and it can get overwhelming and you can forget things. So write everything down and just go step by step. Oh, I remember they said that this contract is supposed to be for 36 hours. I remember they said that if I get called off, I still get my full stipend. Make sure that all of that is in your contract, because the worst thing is to have one of those situations come up and you don't have anything in writing. Anybody can say anything. Anybody can be like, yeah, we approve her days off, but if it's not in the contract and they need staff, all of a sudden, days off who? Where? I don't remember saying that. So you just don't want to be in that situation, because then it makes you feel a certain way, because who knows what you had planned. And you looking at them like you don't even want to be there. So you don't even want to have that headache. Make sure it is in your contract. Another thing that I forgot to mention is, because it was the height of COVID when I started travel nursing, I think one of the important things for me is to make sure that their hospital was equipped with enough PPE. I didn't have an issue though, but you want to make sure that you don't want to be in a situation where you got to be reusing your N95 500 times because they don't have enough to go around. I think those are legitimate and important questions. And don't feel like you offending people or you doing too much, like, oh, I don't want to ask them because then they're not going to accept me. This is your job. This is your life. You want to make it easier, and you want to kind of have some type of idea of what you're stepping into, because automatically as a travel nurse, you don't really have a clue unless you hear it from somebody else who has worked at the hospital. You're kind of going in blind. So the more information that you can get, the better. And that's why I said I always recommend speaking to the nurse manager, and it builds a rapport, because when you get there, it's like, oh yeah, Shannon, I remember talking to you last week about so-and-so. They kind of already know you, and you kind of already get to know them and the vibe. So ask as many questions as possible. Whatever is important to you, whatever you can think of, get the nurse manager number, call them. Hey, what's up? I just had a quick couple questions about the unit that I'll be working on. What is the unit? What is the patient ratio? Do y'all have enough PPE? Are you calling people off? Because sometimes they may not really have a full need for you, or even on that floor. There are a few times on the ortho floor that, not a lot, but I was being floated because they're going to pick their regular staff over you. It's cheaper to pay their regular staff. And so if they were fully staffed and the census was low, I was getting floated somewhere else. So ask those type of questions, like, is the floor heavy? Do y'all have a lot going on? Or do y'all just need one traveler and that's it? Like, ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. The more you know, the better. Some other things to look for that my friends have told me about, I've never did it, but look to see if the hospital is profit or non-profit. I guess that'll be able to tell you what type of situation you might be walking into. I don't know, like, if it's profit or non-profit, if that let you know if you'll have resources available or if they care about their staff. But somebody did tell me to look up that, and then also look up the number of beds that they have. The hospital that I worked at had like 600 something beds. Like, it was a huge hospital. Like, you had to use a map. They have a map specifically so that you can find your way around the hospital. Like, that's how big the hospital was. All I knew how to do was get to Starbucks and get to my floor. That was it. And if I had to get floated, me being floated though wasn't too bad, but it was a huge hospital. But look it up to see what type of, how many beds are they gonna have on a unit. Also, look up to see if they are a trauma hospital. That'll let you know the acuity of your patients. If they are a trauma hospital, you're gonna probably have some really sick patients. The hospital that I was at, they were a trauma hospital. They were known for their cardiac department. That's what people go there for, but that's where a bulk of their money comes from, their cardiac patients. So those are just a few things to look for when you are choosing the hospital. I mean, sometimes you might not even care about none of that. You just like, I'm here to get my money. I know I'm not staying, whatever the case may be, especially if you're competent enough, get my money and I'm out regardless of what y'all got going on there. But if you're like me, who like, and I'm the type of person, like, I need to know a little bit about what's going on, those are just a few things that you guys can look for to kind of give you an idea of what situation you may be walking into. So y'all, that is the end of the video. I really hope that you guys found it informative and useful. I hope that I shed light on a few things that you may have not known. And for those who are travel nurses, y'all chime in the bottom. If I forgot anything, please bring it up and I'll explain more or go more in depth or in detail in the comments. Y'all know that I like to talk to y'all in the comments, so even if y'all do have questions about certain stuff that I didn't bring up, let me know. I definitely love to talk to y'all. Y'all can slide in my DM, which a lot of y'all do. Go ahead and slide in there, send me your questions, ask away, because the most important thing I want y'all to get out of this is that it is money to be made. As a bedside nurse, core staff, I guarantee you are not getting paid enough. I don't care where you work at. Bedside, core staff, you are not getting paid what you are worth. And that's not to say that as a travel nurse that's the money we are worth, because even those $10,000 contracts, I feel like they should be paying us way more than that. We deal with a lot of stuff, but I feel like if you are going to be doing bedside, and you can, I feel like everybody should do at least one contract to get that experience and get that money. But if you can, if you want to do bedside, I feel like traveling is the way to go. You will get so much more bang for your buck. Traveling put me in such a great position. Y'all know I paid off of my debt with traveling. I've started a business with traveling. I've been able to take off months with traveling. I've been able to focus on my mental health. You just know, like, money is not everything, but money provides you access to a lot of things. And so I want y'all to get this bag. It is money out there. These hospitals, this is a $1 billion business. It ain't about patient safety. You already know how it is. Go get this money. It is there for you to receive. You deserve it. Even as a new nurse, you are about to be putting in, y'all know I'm still a new nurse. You are about to be putting in so much work. Don't be loyal to them hospitals. Don't be loyal to the recruiters. Only be loyal to yourself and your pockets and your future. Go out and get this money, y'all. If y'all get nothing else from this conversation, it is money to be made off of travel nursing. And I know they say don't do it for the money, but why else would you do it? You can love your patients all you want to. Guess who's not going to appreciate you? That hospital. Guess who is not going to pay you accordingly? That hospital, that clinic, wherever. Go get this money. So I hope, like I said, you guys found this video informative, and I will see you guys in the next one.